Welcome to another live stream. It's been a while, so let's go ahead and do it. I got a few questions waiting. What I'm going to do to start is going to go ahead and talk about reverse dieting. I want to give you some of the kind of pros and cons to a faster or slower approach, and kind of help you determine what would be best for you depending on your goals, what's most important to you, and how things are going. So I'll get into that. Feel free to leave any questions you have if you're waiting, and I will certainly get to those once I'm done with my topic. And if anyone could just let me know that you can hear me okay and everything is going okay, that would be great. Let me hide this. I don't need that up right now. And let's go ahead and go into it. So now, here's the thing with the reverse dieting. So I always get different comments and a lot of black and white thinking, like, it has to be slow and a really, minimal gradual increase, or that's dumb. You don't improve your metabolism very well that way. You need to do it faster. You need to do something like a recovery diet and take things quick. It always depends. You hear me say that all the time. It always depends on a lot of different things. So like I said, I want to talk about some of the pros and cons to taking either approach and, try to get away from that black or white thinking. And really, bottom line is it's really simple, really, when it comes to how fast to increase your calories. The faster you increase your calories, the more likely you are to gain body fat. However, you're also going to get a lot of the benefits of reverse dieting quicker as well, such as being less hungry, better performance, and better strength in the gym, building your metabolism, building muscle, all the really good things that come with reverse dieting. The faster you get your calories up, the faster you're going to get that, but more likely to gain more body fat during the process. The slower you take it, the less likely you are to gain, but the longer it's going to take to get those things, and you can kind of keep yourself running to the ground a bit longer, and you just have to kind of determine what's most important for you. Now, hello. Hopefully you can hear me. You must. Otherwise, I'm sure you would have said something by now. But the big thing is what I hear a lot. Almost everyone says, well, I want to, keep from gaining weight as much as possible. And that's what's most important. Can we please take it slow? And of course, that's fine. However, you have to also pay attention to how well you're adhering to the plan, because especially in the early part of the reverse diet process, most of the time, hunger is going to be pretty bad. It's actually usually worse during the reverse diet phase, at least the first maybe 2 or 3 weeks. Everyone's different. Than it is even during the cut. It's kind of like your body's like, give me more. Like you're getting more calories, and it's just like, yes, I want more. And there's physiological reasons. Your hunger hormones are all off from the dieting, but there's also psychological reasons as well. You're just more focused on food now. Like the goal literally becomes eat more food, and where your mind goes, your body goes, right? So if you're focused on wanting more food, that can just by itself make you more hungry too. But if you really want to stay steady, it's important to take your time and stay really diligent to the plan. But if you just say, well, I just don't want to gain weight and I want to do everything I can to minimize that, so therefore we should take it slow, but now you're feeling overly restricted, you can't deal with the hunger, and you constantly overeat, well, then a slower approach is probably not a good idea for you. If you're constantly having binging tendencies and going way over your calories and overshooting things, and then therefore probably gaining relatively quickly, you're more nervous to increase your calories because you're already gaining, but the reason you're gaining isn't because of the calories, it's because you're not sticking to the plan. Whereas if you took the increases faster and now you had a higher calorie budget, so to speak, now you may find it much easier to stick to the plan, and you're actually going to consume less total calories. It's just your target calories are higher, but it's not your target calories that matter. It's your actual consumed calories, whether you track them or not, right? So that's always something you need to consider. Don't force yourself into lower calories and a slow approach if that's not working for you and you're having a hard time sticking to things. So it also depends on your future goals. What's most important to you? Are you trying to put yourself back into a better position to be able to cut again down the road and start seeing fat loss? Are you just transitioning out of a fat loss phase and now you're just looking to go into rough maintenance for a long period of time? If you're just trying to kind of roughly maintain, it may make sense to take a little bit slower approach and give your body time, knowing you've got plenty of time on the higher calories. If you're trying to set yourself up maybe a little bit faster, getting yourself to start building your metabolism stuff a bit better might be a better approach too. It just kind of depends on how long it's going to take and everything. So you always have to kind of consider like the whole picture and not just, everyone should do like a recovery diet, which that's just for what it's worth, a little side tangent here. The recovery diet is more of a bodybuilding thing, not so much a general lifestyle looking to, just be kind of fit and be in decent shape. And what that is basically like, competitors get so ridiculously lean to unhealthy levels of body fat, and a recovery diet is where you really quickly increase calories, maybe not even track, and just really overeat intentionally to intentionally gain more body fat back quicker to help get your hormones and metabolism back up and start feeling better and get out of that unhealthy low level. All right, that's not the same as you just stopped a regular cut and your body fat isn't ultra low. So that's always something to consider. It doesn't mean you can't do that, but if you are looking to maintain, a recovery diet is not going to do that for you. And that's what I mean by the black and white thinking. Like it just we can't do that. So really when it comes to how fast to increase, it always depends, and of course I've done tons of videos on this, but when I consider like a slow, moderate, faster approach, typically slow, I'm saying like 20 to 40, maybe 50 calories, a more moderate is like 40 to 60 calories, somewhere in there, and a faster would be like above that or 100 plus, right? But if you're losing weight while you increase calories, which is not that uncommon, especially in the early part of the process, then you can increase faster, right? Because you're still in a calorie deficit, which means you have more room to make faster increases. If you're maintaining your weight, then making a little bit slower approach probably makes more sense. If you're gaining, maybe holding steady for a while. But one thing a lot of people do is just do static increases, and it's not like you can't do this. You certainly can, but the problem with a static increase, like, I'll hear like, well, I'm just going to increase my calories 100 every single week. You can certainly do that, and it may go fine, but what happens if you're increasing your calories by 100 each week, but you keep gaining, and then you're gaining, you add another 100, you gain even more, you add another 100, right? Like, I think it's better to pay attention to what happens and make different adjustments based on that, rather than just forcing 50 calories a week, 100 calories a week, unless you don't care too much about how much you're gaining, and maybe 50 to 100 makes sense for you just until you get up to a calorie level that you kind of want to just roughly maintain it, and you feel like you have good flexibility and balance with your diet and that kind of thing. Then great, right? But like I said, pros and cons to either approach. So let me know if you have any questions on the reverse diet process, and of course any other questions. Let me glance over my notes. I think that's all I wanted to say, and then we'll get into things here. And adherence, static. Yeah, that's all I've got. So hope everyone's well. Doesn't look like we got a whole lot of people here, and that's okay. I will handle any questions I have. I do have a few questions already lined up, so I will certainly jump into those right away. Before I do that, let me switch over here. And that is not working. What's going on here? Well, I might have to just say desktop only. That's definitely not working. Well, you know what? I'm just going to show you me, and I'm just going to read the questions then, because you're not going to be able to see it. I'll have to figure that out later. So apologies for that. Which means when I talk about my online coaching, you're not going to be able to see it, but that's okay. So, just before I get into the questions, just wanted to mention, hey, if you are looking for help, if you want to go from feeling overweight and exhausted and just a terrible relationship with food and always worried about it, to getting in great shape, full of energy, a healthy relationship with food, this is something that I would love to help you with. This is what I do. So head to my website, ColinDeWaayTraining.com, and fill out the application. And once you do that, I will get an email saying that I got that. what I'll do is I'll shoot a video going over it, kind of giving you my thoughts on, you know, your current situation, what the investment would be and all that, because it kind of depends on what you need. And I will email you back with that video link. If you don't see it within 24 hours, just check your spam folder. I think I finally got that figured out, so it's not happening anymore, but just in case, if you ever don't see anything from me, that would be why. All right, looks like we got a question. So let's hit that first. And I've got a Post-it note here that's blocking my question, so let me move that. All right, struggling to get 200 grams of protein eating 2,100 calories. Any suggestions? Absolutely. So, one, the simplest one that not a lot of people think of is just bigger portion sizes, right? So like, let's just say, for instance, you're eating 5 or 6 ounces of chicken breast, just bump that up to like 8 ounces, you know, just bigger portions to get more protein in. Don't be afraid of whey protein. A lot of people feel like whey protein is almost like cheating, like it's not real food, so you shouldn't do it. And I couldn't disagree more. I think whey protein is fantastic. If you wanted to make any arguments, I would say that whey protein is probably the best source of protein because it has the highest the highest leucine content, which is the main amino acid responsible for muscle protein synthesis. So I don't really even look at whey protein as a supplement. I look at it as food, and I'll oftentimes do a scoop and a half of whey protein just to get a bit more when I take one, and sometimes multiple scoops a day. So that can be a way, if you're not utilizing whey protein, to help get that number up. And you know, when it comes to your calories being lower and needing more protein, of course it takes up a bigger percentage of your total calories now, which means you're going to want to opt for a lot of the leaner varieties of protein that don't take up many calories. Egg whites is like one of my go-tos because it's just basically literally all protein. And you know, I get my egg whites from Sam's Club, which gives you these like 6 individual packs of egg whites that is 10 servings per pack. So I just dump the whole thing and just use that. And that's 10 servings, which is 200 calories and 50 grams of protein. So egg whites is a fantastic one. Of course, skinless chicken breast, skinless turkey breast. And, you know, I'll keep like turkey deli meat too, just to kind of get some extra protein in here and there. Your kind of low fat, non-fat dairy, it's like Greek yogurts. Seafood is an underrated one. Things like shrimp that are, you know, almost basically all protein are really helpful. White fishes, things like that. And if you're only getting like 3 meals into, adding an extra meal in there, if you can do that, would be another option too. So you're getting a whole extra serving of protein. But it really comes down to not trying to get too much protein from sources that are higher fat, right? Like your like, you know, like an 80-20 beef or something like that. You can do beef, but you want the leaner varieties, at least probably like 90-10, but they even do like 93-7. I've seen 96-4. So you're getting a lot more protein per calories that you're getting. The last thing you want to do is, I always pick on it, but the last thing you want to do is try to get protein from like nuts and peanut butter and stuff. Like, I always hear this is a great source of protein, and it makes no sense. It's a horrible source of protein for the amount of calories you get. In fact, if you break down the macronutrients of those things, there's actually less calories from protein than there are carbs and fat, both. So it's not a great source of protein by any stretch of the imagination. So hopefully that was helpful, but let me know any questions you have. All right, let me get into my questions now. I really hate that this isn't working. Let me look one more time. What is going on here? Aha, I did it. All right. Sorry about that. Back in business. All right, let's go to the questions that I have. I will bump this up. Like another one's coming in. I'll hit one of these and then I'll come back to your question. Thanks, Melissa. Glad you like them. And the question is, what time would you recommend having your last meal? And do you have to wait a certain amount of time between having your last meal and going to, I think it said bed, but it got cut off. So it doesn't matter. All right. So at least when it comes to fat loss, fat gain, it does not matter when you eat your food. I mean, it's been shown time and time again. There's been numerous studies on this: meal timing, meal frequency. As long as your total intake, especially your total calories and your total protein, and if you want to go a step further, your total fiber, as long as those things are the same, how you space it out doesn't really matter. And there's no like, okay, the old train of thought used to be if you have your carbs, especially too close to bed, then your body's not going to use those for energy, and then it's just going to convert into fat when you sleep. And it just doesn't work that way. It's a 24-hour picture that you need to look at things. And I quite frequently eat very quickly, very soon before I go to bed. I'm always hungry at night. I've been hungry at night my whole life, and I like to save a lot of calories for right before bed. It's just when I tend to be hungry. So, I mean, for me, like, it's usually maybe an hour before I go to bed, but it's not unheard of. Just eat and go right to bed. So the only reason that you wouldn't want to have your last meal right before bed or too soon before bed is if maybe it causes you to struggle with sleeping, if it maybe gives you a little like gastrointestinal stress and you feel a little uncomfortable and it impacts your sleep, then okay, you might want to eat a little bit earlier. Everyone's different. Like my wife doesn't eat near bed because she just doesn't feel good and she's not hungry at night, so she eats her last meal or snack, so she's got plenty of time before going to bed. But if you're just worried about fat loss, fat gain as a whole, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. If you like to eat later, great. If you don't want to, that's fine. Doesn't matter. All right, let's get some of the questions that are popping up, and I'll get the rest of them over here. Very welcome. All right, do people generally bulk until they reach their goal weight, then cut to go back and forth? Since building muscle takes a while, the extra fat stays around, if that makes sense. So everyone's different. It's not a terrible approach. It just like depends what's your primary goal. Like if you're looking to build as much muscle as possible and that's your big goal, then going through bulking and cutting phases is the way to do it. Early on, especially like within the first maybe year or so, very generalization, but within that first early time frame as a beginner or coming back from a very long layoff, you can absolutely build muscle very well doing just about anything. You can actually build muscle and lose fat simultaneously. At a certain point, that becomes very, very difficult to do, and you want to make sure you're in a small surplus if you want to optimally build muscle. It doesn't need to be a large surplus, so these like dirty bulks or just like eat everything in sight, not a great idea, because you're gonna add way more fat than you need to, and without really necessarily even building any more muscle, arguably even like not any more muscle. Like if you're in a 200 or 300 calorie surplus versus like a 1500 calorie surplus, it's entirely possible you wouldn't build any more muscle with that 1500 calories. Maybe a tiny bit, but not much, and definitely, in my opinion, not worth all the extra fat gain that's going to come with it that you're going to now have to cut off down the road and make that process take much longer and be much more difficult than it needs to be. So if that's your biggest goal, is to have a very muscular, shredded frame or whatever, then going through those phases is going to be the best way to do that, in my personal opinion. But if that's not your goal and you're just kind of looking to stay in general shape and everything, you don't necessarily have to go through bulking and cutting phases. You're still going to want to probably reverse diet out after any cut, get calories back up, because you don't want to just live on those very low calories and be running the ground all the time. You still need to be okay with a little weight gain during that part of the process, and I'm going to be doing a future video about this, but even like weight maintenance, so to speak, it's not really you just get to a certain weight and you just stay that way forever. Like, if only. Are there some people that do this? Sure. Not very many people, very, very few. To me, weight maintenance is more, you have kind of a range, maybe it's a 10-pound range or so. It's going to be different for everyone, especially depending upon your size and stuff. But, for me, it's like maybe 10 to 15 pounds, right? And I'll cut that down. Maybe that's going to take, 10, 12, 16 weeks or whatever. And I'll get down to that lower end of the range. And I know I'm not going to be able to maintain that. There's just no way. But then it can be, maybe it's going to take 2 years until I gain that 10 pounds back, and then I can do quick cuts. And because I'm in a good spot metabolically from having spent so much time not dieting, that those cuts are much easier and your body responds well, and then you just kind of stay in that range, and that's kind of roughly how you maintain. But trying to just get to a certain weight and just stay there is virtually impossible. And what ends up happening to a lot of people is they just constantly keep cutting over and over and over again, because it's like every time they get 2 or 3 pounds over where they want to be, it's like, okay, slash calories again. And it's just like over and over and over all year, every year, they're constantly slashing calories until they run their metabolism into the ground. And now pretty soon they can't lose it all and things go backwards, right? So trying to stay too close to a certain number is just really challenging and not really, to me, how weight maintenance works. You don't want to get too caught up in that. So that's why, I mean, even though like cutting and bulking is more of like a bodybuilding kind of a strategy, it doesn't mean it's not still a good option even for the general population and people who just kind of want to do just that, have that range of weight maintenance stuff. Because the hardest part that most people typically have with weight maintenance, or let me just say that weight maintenance is just not sexy, right? It's not a fun goal. We're just all so motivated by progress. And while we can make all the arguments we want about, why people tend to gain weight after dieting, and certainly, the physiological response, hormones off, metabolism slow, body fat set point, all those things are very real. But every bit as important or as hard as that is, I really feel like the psychological side is too, because even if you get where you want to be, you now take away that result-based goal, and it makes it so much less motivating because you got to keep working. You can't just eat whatever you want. You can't just stop exercising. It has to be a lifestyle. It has to be something you're going to do forever. And if you get there and now you're not motivated anymore because you're not chasing a goal, and the goal literally becomes stay the same, you're like, well, why am I working so hard to just stay the same? Why am I paying so close attention to everything if I'm not going to see any progress? And then boom, you slide backwards really fast, and then crap, you panic, try to come back, and it's just a real struggle. Most people tend to struggle more, even on the higher calories, even reaching their goal, than during that part than they are in the actual cutting phase itself, because you take away that motivation. And of course, you can't rely on motivation. It's always going to come and go. So even if that's just kind of your goal, having a goal of, okay, like I'm now going to take this reverse and I'm going to let it turn into maybe like a bit of a lean bulk, and I'm going to try to build some muscle, because now it gives it purpose, right? You're going to gain a little weight, but instead of going, crap, I'm gaining weight, I don't want to, crap, this is bad, this is not what I want to have happen, it now turns into, well, it's part of what you're trying to accomplish. You're gaining a little bit of weight, but it's okay, I'm building muscle. Muscle is weight. That's part of the plan, right? And it gives you more purpose, and now you're still making progress. You're still working towards something, and this keeps you from over dieting too, as long as you don't panic and jump back into a deficit because of the weight gain, right? So it can be a good strategy. Like, weight maintenance is very hard. This is something I've been struggling with a lot myself too. Like, it's just it's a very difficult thing, and a lot of it is psychological. So I know that was an overly long explanation of kind of trying to answer that question, but yeah, I mean, there is no like people generally do this or that. There's many different ways to do things, and it always depends on what your biggest goals are. But in a very long-winded way, that's my way of saying it's not a bad strategy for anybody in my mind, and it makes a lot of sense. So yeah, but you just don't gain more than you need to. Don't like go into a huge surplus if you're trying to build it. It's not necessary. Hopefully that was helpful. All right, what do I recommend to eat prior and after working out, and how long you wait before working out after eating? So, the whole like anabolic window thing, it's been pretty severely debunked. And it used to be like, okay, like once you're done with your workout, you need to hit a fast digesting protein as soon as possible so that you don't miss this window of increased, it's called anabolism, or increased muscle protein synthesis that comes from that workout. But when you dig into the research, your muscle protein synthesis is elevated post-training for like up to even potentially 48 hours, like 24 to 48 hours. So that's a pretty big window of time, right? So, I mean, it's not a bad idea to get a good protein source before and after your workouts, but it also isn't 100% necessary. Like if you're like just really full and have a hard time eating after a workout, you can wait a couple hours and just kind of eat at your next meal. Or if you try to eat before your workout and it makes you feel really full and sluggish, you don't have to. But if you're looking to do what's most optimal, there's probably a small difference, very small, and possibly even negligible. But it's probably a good idea to get a decent carb and protein source before and after your workout, but it doesn't have to be right before or right after. And in fact, too close before is probably going to have you feeling a little bit sluggish. So maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours before, and again, maybe an hour or 2 hours after. It can be right after, it can be an hour later. There's no magic time you have to do this. So like for me, I have I'm fortunate to be able to time my workouts this way. So I just eat my lunch, and then a couple hours later go do my workout, and then a couple hours later I eat my dinner. So it's just sandwiched in between there, but I'm not trying to rush to do optimal meal timing or anything like that. I just sandwich it around that. So bottom line is, don't stress about it, but if you can do, a quicker digesting carb and protein before and after, probably a good idea. If gun to my head, which one matters more? Maybe after. And I think it more depends on what the rest of your day looks like. If you go to your workout fasted, then I would definitely recommend trying to get a good protein source or get a meal in with a good protein source after your workout to get that recovery process going. And I think that's much different than you ate before. It's not like you're not going to still be assimilating some of that protein after, you know what I mean? So it's more important if you're going into your workouts fasted to get something after. If you've done it before, then it becomes much less important, in my opinion. All right, let's see. No more questions. I've got 2 more over here, so I'll go to them. Feel free to ask any questions you may have. Why are these not showing up right? Let me try refreshing this. Oh, I just saw a whole bunch more comments pop up that weren't there. All right, I'll go back. There we go. All right, let me handle this one and then I'll go back. Hey, so when do you usually recommend your first initial refeed day or days during a cutting phase? After a month, when you plateau for the first time? You're very welcome. And, my opinion has changed on this quite a bit over the years. And I used to kind of say, I don't like to do a refeed day until after 2 weeks or so of staying in a deficit. And I used to kind of think, it just kind of feels like, I see oftentimes if you do a refeed too early that it kind of blunts fat loss a little bit, whereas down the road it can be helpful. I don't think there's really any real truth behind that anymore. And there's definitely no research that would suggest that. So it kind of comes down more to me, do you prefer to have those refeed days for the psychological reasons? And also, if you are going to do them, I usually just say, just do them right away. Just make it part of your plan. There was a USF study that did the refeed approach versus a straight up calorie deficit. So the difference was they had one group do 5 days of a 5 days of a 35% calorie deficit and 2 days around maintenance. The other group did 7 days of a 25% calorie deficit. So it was the same deficit for the week. It was just one group had that kind of double refeed approach. The other group was in a constant deficit all week. And both groups saw the same amount of weight loss during the study, but the group that did the refeed approach lost more body fat and kept more lean body mass. So that's why, again, you can't only look at scale weight, because if you can keep more lean body mass and lose more body fat, that's way more optimal. It's going to help your body composition. It's going to help your metabolism. And that study also showed some improvements in total metabolism or resting metabolic rate for the group that did the double refeed approach too. So it's really not necessarily about being in a big deficit and then adding in refeeds to help feel better. That is one way you could do things, but I'm more of the opinion, if you're going to do them right away and help keep yourself in a better spot. It's very similar to diet breaks. Instead of just, diet until you feel like absolute hot garbage and then take the diet break, why not sometimes just do them anyways to help yourself feel better and keep yourself from feeling terrible. And then it's also going to help keep you in a better spot to help keep the process working better. So no matter what, to me, your total intake for the week is what matters the most. And if you prefer refeed days or not, if you prefer to just kind of go up and down any given day and you don't care how high or low that is and you just average it out for the week, that's fine. That whatever helps you adhere the best is what's going to be the best for you, and that's going to be different for everyone. Gun to my head, what's the absolute most optimal way to do it? I would probably just do a double refeed, the back-to-back, because research is kind of shown that to get actual metabolic benefits, it seems like there needs to be consecutive days, whereas a single-day refeed doesn't as much. It still helps, like, psychologically to get extra calories. It still helps replenish some glycogen storage and things like that, but it doesn't appear to do much for, like, actual, like, hormones and metabolism, whereas a double refeed might. I think we need more research on this, and it might not be as much as we maybe initially thought, but there are potentially some benefits there. So like I said, gun to my head, double refeed right away, just match the calorie deficit, and that's probably the best way. And then instead of waiting to do a refeed later, you just wait to do like an actual diet break, which is essentially refeeds but for a longer period of time, like a week or two. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, let's get to the questions at hand here. Currently bulking, but not goal yet. Not sure if I cut, I will mess up my progress. Well, again, it depends on what your biggest goals are. If your biggest goal is to build as much muscle as possible, then the longer you can stay out of a deficit, the better off you're going to be, the more muscle you can build. Muscle is a very slow process. Building muscle is extremely slow, painstakingly slow. Fat loss is a much faster process. I like the way Paul Ravella said it to me once. He was like, he goes, muscle is built by the gram, fat is built by the ounce, right? Like it just happens much faster, in both directions. So you don't want to constantly be dieting all the time if you're trying to build muscle, because you're going to stop from actually accumulating much. And anytime you diet, you're going to lose a little bit of muscle too. Like the goal is to minimize it as much as possible, but the chances are you're going to lose at least some. You'll never notice it or know this because you're going to look better and your muscles are going to look more defined because they're the fat that you're stripping away is now uncovering the muscles. But if you really break it down, generally, unless you're early in the process, you're going to lose a little bit. So it depends on how long your last cut was. It depends on how long you've been out of a deficit. If you really want to build, making sure you take at least a good year to do so is a great idea. And the longer, the better off you're going to be. Good morning and thank you. All right, how do you recommend reducing cardio when reversing? I'm coming to the end of a deficit and add steps in cardio, but would like to reduce once I'm done with my cut. So much like with the reverse diet process with calories, it's very similar, just in the opposite direction. So like with calories, the faster you increase, right, the faster you're going to get the benefits, but the more likely you are to gain. Well, if you're reducing your cardio and steps, the faster you reduce your cardio and steps, the more likely you are to gain, but also the faster you're going to get some of those benefits. And it kind of depends a lot too on how much you're doing. I find people that do a lot of cardio, like if you're doing like an hour of cardio every day, usually you can make bigger decreases pretty quickly, and the body does a pretty good job of adapting to this and probably thanking you for not running into the ground so much. That could be part of it. Whereas if you're only doing like 2 hours for the week, well then maybe doing like 20 or 30 minutes a week, or if you have a long time, you could literally just do like 10 minutes. It's not like your body would ever notice 10 minutes, right? If you took away 10 minutes every single week and just get it to where you want it to be, that's the strategy. But there's no like one set way, and it really depends a lot on what you've been doing, which I don't know, nor do I know what's your biggest goal and everything like that. I do have a video that kind of talks about this called like reverse diet cardio or something. Let me look it up. That might help you a little bit, because I give some recommendations, but it's just that, right? It's recommendations off of real like generalizations, and it can never be specific to the individual. But reverse diet cardio, Colin DeWaay. See what we can find here. All right, so right here. Reverse diet cardio how-to guide. If you just look that one up, it will kind of give you some more detail about how you can go through reducing your cardio. Any questions on that? Let me know. How'd you get into your fitness journey? What was the first thing you started with? Thanks. Can't stay around for the answer right now. Okay, so, well, when you come back. So, honestly, like, when I was younger, I always wanted to have more muscle. I was the skinny kid. Like, I grew up just, I think I graduated high school like 5'10", 130 something pounds, like soaking wet, right? So I always wanted the muscle. You always want what you don't have, right? And, I lifted kind of on and off through high school and like early 20s, but I never did it really seriously. And I'd always, stop during the winter, I would lift during the winter when I wasn't playing baseball. And then the baseball season would start in the summer and I would stop and I would lose all my progress and I would just start over every single year. So I always kind of had an interest, but I never got super serious about it until my late 20s, basically after my son was born. So 2008, that fall is when I got really serious, and I had, I'd gained some of that sympathy weight, so to speak, and, it wasn't like I was like, obese or anything, but, I had put on 15 to 20 pounds relatively quickly, and I was like, okay, like time to get it together here. And I was like, all right, like, let's get into the gym. And I just started back into my strength training routines, got more serious about it, started looking into the nutrition side of things more, which, man, like when I was younger, I had no clue that nutrition even mattered. I didn't know that protein built muscle. I didn't know that you should be eating protein if you want muscle or that nutrition mattered at all. Super naive. We're talking about the 90s here too, where there wasn't all the information wasn't at your fingertips all the time. But, yeah, I mean, I kind of got back into it and started seeing some nice results. My body was recomping really well. I mean, with the first like 2 years or so that I did this stuff, I basically stayed the exact weight the whole time. It's just I was building muscle and losing body fat, and I just became pretty addicted to it. Like, man, I just love the way I felt. I love the way I was starting to look, and I kind of became pretty obsessed about changing my body and getting into things. I liked how I felt and everything, and it just really turned into something pretty big. And I found myself just constantly, spending all my time trying to learn how to get better results and stuff, and eventually made a career out of it. But yeah, I mean, it was really my son being born, and one, wanting to set an example for him too, and two, just my own personal desire to have a more muscular body. Thank you. All right, if you're lean down and I want to go on a lean bulk, should I reverse diet or go straight to my maintenance and add a percentage of calories? So again, it always depends, much like I talked about twice now in this video, but that's okay. The faster you increase, the more likely you are to gain. So if your goal is to build muscle, it probably makes more sense to take a faster approach to that reverse. It doesn't mean you should necessarily just jump calories way up right away. And it depends too on how things are going. Like, I've gotten this question before, and I used to take people through my own personal like reverse diet and cutting process so you could kind of see how it worked. But I kind of stopped doing that because people compared way too much, and I didn't really like that. But like the last time I finished a reverse diet, and I started I finished my cut, started my reverse diet, and I instantly bumped up my calories like 400 or 500 calories or something like that. And like I remember one of my clients was like, well, why did you give yourself so many calories? But when I started my reverse diet, you only gave me 100 calories. And I had to explain to him, well, one, you really wanted to make sure you didn't gain any weight. Two, when I stopped my cut, I was still losing like 1.5 pounds every single week. So I was in a big deficit when I started increasing my calories. You had been stuck for several weeks, not losing any weight. So you were already at your maintenance calories. Remember, your maintenance calories is a moving target, and it adjusts as you go through the cutting process. And not only do you now weigh less, so your maintenance calories is lower than it would have been before anyways, but there's also the metabolic suppressions that come with that beyond just what the weight loss would have predicted. There's research that has shown this, that finishing a cutting process, your maintenance calories is usually lower than what would be predicted just by the weight loss alone. So you have to consider that. So if you haven't really been losing and you jump up your calories by like 500 or something, now that's probably going to be a pretty surplus for you. So that just kind of depends. So if you really want to build muscle, jumping right back up to maintenance relatively quickly would probably make the most sense. But understand that maintenance calories is a moving target, and you definitely can't just go back to what your maintenance calories were before the diet, because it's not going to be that anymore, even without the suppression. So all things to consider. And I do have a video about this as well that you would probably find helpful. Reverse diet, lean bulk, or something like that. Yeah, reverse diet to lean bulk, right here. So you can check that out. And basically what I explain is, one, how to go through the process, but also that the reverse diet, if you're looking to lean bulk, the reverse diet just kind of becomes a lean bulk kind of naturally, right? So at first it's about undoing some of the suppressions in your hormones and metabolism. It's going to be hard to build muscle in the beginning stages anyways, because things like testosterone and a lot of your hormones are going to be suppressed. So your anabolic hormones, and you want to take time to get them back into a better spot and then transition into the lean bulk. So it's like you slowly increase your calories, or I should say gradually. I shouldn't say slowly, because it doesn't have to be slow. You gradually increase your calories, and eventually that kind of, you find your actual rough maintenance, and then pretty soon that puts you into a small surplus. And when you do that, now you just kind of hold those calories until you no longer are gaining the appropriate amount of weight you want. I talk about in this video, that video about what kind of rate of weight gain you should be looking for. But you just kind of hold those calories as you're gaining the appropriate amount of weight. And then once now eventually your body's going to adapt, right? Your maintenance calories becomes a moving target, and now all of a sudden your surplus is now maintenance, right? Well, then you make another small bump up that puts you back into that small surplus. So it's kind of the same thing. It just turns it from undoing of suppression into actual building, if that makes sense. Sure. It's just hard to get a lot of carbs from a salad, usually, depending on what you put in it, I guess. But if you want a salad, by all means, just make sure you get a good protein source. And if you're looking to get carbs up, it's hard to do so through like leafy green vegetables. But of course, there's plenty of health benefits. Like, obviously, that's great. But there's no right or wrong answer in terms of like actual food sources, especially post-workout. It used to be said that like you shouldn't have fat post-workout. That's not really true. It doesn't, at least based on what I've seen. I haven't seen any research that would suggest that you shouldn't. Whereas before your workout, having a lot of fat or having a lot of really fibrous foods like that, well, that can cause some gastrointestinal stress and bloating and stuff for your workout that wouldn't be very fun, right? So, yeah, that's fine. I feel like this isn't working right. Let me... Hopefully this is working okay. Let me see. Well, I'll see if it pops up. Last time I thought there was nothing, then all of a sudden like 12 of them popped up out of nowhere. So let me go to the last question I had that was pre-video, and then I'll check back and see if anything else is updated. All right. Let me hide myself here so I can actually read this. It's that one. All right. If you have injured your shoulder and now can only lift 10-pound dumbbells without pain, should I just not do shoulder work or use the 10-pound dumbbell till I heal? I've been concentrating on lower body resistance. So I can't specifically answer the question because, one, I don't know how severe the injury is. Two, I'm not a physical therapist, right? Like, that's the best bet is to see a physical therapist about this so they can, give you instructions. Three, and I'm doing it online, right? So a very different thing. So, I mean, my general advice, obviously not medical advice, would be that if you can use light weights and it doesn't cause pain and you can work around it, great. But don't do anything that you would think would jeopardize further injury. Don't do anything that causes actual pain. And when in doubt, let it rest. Like if it's an actual injury, then you need to make sure it's healing up and not rushing and making things worse. The last thing you want to do is take something that could be small and turn it into something pretty large because you want to get back to things. And trust me, I've made that mistake plenty of times in my lifting career. So again, I can't really say one way or another, but And one thing too, like a lot of times with shoulder stuff, a lot of times it's overhead work that causes pain, but you can do other things. So, and I don't do a lot of overhead work anymore myself, just in general, because like you can still work all three heads of the shoulder without doing an overhead kind of a press. So like if it's overhead pressing that hurts, well, do like lateral raises where you're bringing it up over your head, front raises, lateral raises, rear delt raises, things like that. That might be a bit safer. I don't know what kind of injury it is, but those could be options as well. And hopefully you heal up here pretty quickly. All right. I really wish I knew if there was more chats here. Let me try something. See if I can go to my own video. Nope, I think I'm caught up. At least based on this, I am. All right, I will hold off for a minute here and see if anybody has any other questions. In the meantime, again, if you're looking for online coaching, head to my website, fill out this application. It does come with a 30-day money-back guarantee, meaning that if you try it out and you decide within 30 days that, you know what, this isn't for me, it's not my cup of tea, so to speak, then you get your money back. So it's literally, I can never say that word, literally risk-free, and fill that out. If you're not following me on Instagram, you can do so, Colin DeWaay. I've been trying to post there more frequently, that and Facebook. All right, I think that's about it. So I'm going to go ahead and call it here. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. If you have any questions, you always know where to find me. I mean, leave comments on any of my videos. And as a reminder too, like if you're ever wishing that I had a topic covered, a certain topic that has a video, search my name, Colin DeWaay, 2 ways in DeWaay, and put in the thing that you are searching with that. And okay, now things are popping up again. What is going on here? All right, I'll handle them. I don't know what's going on with the live stream today. But yeah, so if you just search my name and then whatever topic, there's about a 90% chance that I've done a video on it. I've got 800 videos at this point, so I've done it all. All right, they're popping up. Something's going on with the live today, but I'll handle them. Apologies for that. Heavy sugar cravings during maintenance. My job is heavy. I walk 17 to 20,000 steps 4 days a week. I guess I'm not sure what your question is. Is your question how to handle sugar cravings better? When it comes to sugar cravings, or really any kind of craving, I find most of the time it just comes because you feel like you shouldn't have it, and you try to make it off limits, right? Like you don't crave something that you have frequently. You don't crave things you can have whenever you want. You crave things that you rarely have, or especially feel like you shouldn't have. And boy, have I done a lot of videos about how sugar has been demonized unfairly to the point where, like, honestly, there's so much research now that showed that at least if calories and protein are equated, and especially fiber, how much sugar you have is completely irrelevant. It is easy to overeat. A lot of times you can have it, maybe crave more, but by itself, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not about sugar itself. It's about the context of your entire diet. And for a lot of people, what works well is actually, like, if you have a lot of sugar cravings and it's because you're being rigid with it, we'll start including some small sugary snack that you like into your day and just planning around that and enjoy that and have it every day. And over time, all of a sudden, now it kind of takes that stigma away a little bit, and it makes it much easier to handle some of that stuff. But if you're in a very active job, which clearly you are, and you're getting all that activity in, well, sugar is a fast digesting carb that's going to fuel some of that activity. And that might be why you're getting some of those cravings too, because it's like your body's looking for a source to use as energy. But if you're in maintenance, then, it can depend on when your last dieting phase was too, and things like that. But if you have a specific question and I didn't address it, let me know. All good. Very welcome. All right. I usually have a low workout tolerance. My blood pressure would drop and experience syncope. I don't even know what that is. Post-workout. Have you had a client with this kind of issue? No. Let me do something. Let me do something here. Oh, so loss of consciousness. So it okay, so let me stress this again. I'm not a doctor. I can't and wouldn't give medical advice, and you should definitely seek someone who is specializing in something like this. So see your physician and, you know, like, talk to them about it. But it almost sounds almost more like possibly hypoglycemia, and maybe you're not giving yourself enough carbs to fuel that performance, and you might be going hypoglycemic. So if this is a common issue, one thing you could do is first make sure you're having a good carb source before your workout. So make sure you're fueling yourself up, and then bring some sort of like a pure sugar, like candy or something that's easy to eat to the gym. So Mike and Ike's or Sour Patch Kids or some sort of like pure sugar, basically, right? And if you start experiencing some of these feelings, pop some sugar and see if that takes that away, because if it does, then that would make more sense. But it sounds like you already have kind of been diagnosed with this. And anyways, to answer your question, no, I don't have experience with that. And if you have not seen a physician, please do so, because they're going to be able to help you in a way that I never could. I'll be 60 this year, and I'm trying to build muscle with 1,500 calories a day. Should I increase my calories? Well, there's a lot of things I don't know. I love that you have the goal of building muscle. I love that, especially at your age. It's never too late, and there are so many benefits. Like, you know, most of the slowdowns in metabolism that happen as you age come from loss of lean body mass. You know, a lot of people don't realize that. You don't just, like, your metabolism doesn't just tank. You lose like maybe 1 to 2% per decade off your actual like metabolic rate, right? And the majority of that is from loss of lean body mass as you age. So what's the best way to combat that? Strength training, build muscle. It also helps with you know, bone mineral density, and you know, most, like, a very high percentage of unfortunate deaths in elderly come from falling, and you know, like, and because they're brittle from no training and all the low bone mineral density, and my screen just went completely blank. I don't know what is going on today. There's like a gremlin in here. But anyways, like, taking care of yourself like that is huge. And I love to hear that. So I don't know if 1,500 calories is a lot or a little for you. I don't know your size. I don't know what your normal maintenance calories are. Just in general, 1,500 certainly doesn't sound very, very high. So, like, my general thought would be like, yeah, it'd be good to get them up, especially if you're not gaining. You know, making sure that you're, you know, taking that video I showed about, you know, lean bulking would be a good option, and getting them up, because it's going to help with that process. Just, you know, keep an eye on things and make sure you're not gaining too quickly. But it's hard to say. Make sure you're getting plenty of protein in. As you age too, your body does not kind of like assimilate protein the same way, so you need more of it to get the same effect as when you're younger. So this is where, like, 1 gram per pound of body weight makes a lot more sense. And yeah, again, I can't say for sure, but it probably wouldn't be a bad idea. My instinct is that yes, you should probably get them up, but I can't say, like, I don't know, like, maybe you're just a tiny little you know, 4'10", 105 pound person that you know what I mean, like, then 1,500 calories is a lot more than if you're someone who's much bigger, you know what I mean. Well, I wish I knew if this thing was working, because it certainly doesn't seem like it. There's definitely a large delay in my comments today. All right, all right, I got another one over here. It's not showing up on this one yet, so clearly something's going on, but I'll read it. Have I heard of mini bulks, shorter duration, like 2 months before cutting? Do you think it's a good idea? No, I don't. And I don't usually say something that emphatically, but it's just like, you're not going to build any muscle in 2 months. Like, especially if you're coming from a deficit, it's going to take that long to just get your metabolism and your hormones back into a better spot again. So like you could do like a mini reverse or like an extended diet break where you're spending more time out of a deficit, great. But if you're looking to actually build like you are in a bulk, what are you going to do in 2 months? You know what I mean? Like it's not going to be much, especially like, you know, having seen you, Jeff. Like I know that you're experienced and you have a real nice muscle base, so it's not like you're, you know, starting fresh here and new to training or anything like that. So I can't see any way that would really be much benefit, honestly, outside of you know what you would get from that metabolically speaking. It's kind of like taking extended diet breaks to me, more so than like actual building. All right, I'm just gonna keep refreshing and see if things keep showing up. Apologies for the glitch here today. Blame YouTube. All right, I think that's it. So I'm gonna call it. I will pay attention to things. If I see things pop up, I will try to answer them in the comment section of the video itself. And certainly, like if you're watching this on replay or anything, feel free to leave comments on the video and I'll answer your questions. But I think that's it. So thank you so much for tuning in. And I got a new video coming out next week. That one is about, what is that one about? Can't even remember now, but just watch for it. All right, take care, and thanks for watching. Let me see if I can never end this thing right. Let's see, end stream.